Okay, going all nerd up, reading about COVID-19 and why we're going through what we're going through right now. This article is focused on these non pharmaceutical interventions, basically, why we're told to stay at home. So, some facts, or maybe not facts, but some things brought up here, because facts are always disputable. It's going to take 12 to 18 months to have a vaccine. Whether or not that vaccine is actually worthwhile is anyone's guess. But based off of this article, it presumes that based off the current infection rates, 80% of the population will be infected if nothing is really done. What's kind of interesting is, in terms of if nothing is done and we weren't to put together any of these mitigation, so these are deaths per population, but just to point out that basically you're going to have a huge spike in cases and obviously deaths related to that. And in an unmitigated fashion or circumstance, then you'd have about 30 times at the peak of this, the amount of available ICU or critical beds, which obviously causes people not to get treated properly and results in a potential of 2.2 million deaths in the US. So that's fun. But as you can see here, obviously it comes up, then it goes down. And this is over a course of a few months. That's in part behind, it's a very short duration of infection period and subsequent reinfection of other people. And by that time, you've either died or you have some immunity. So then things go away. The other interesting thing is, if I can find the table, here we go. Kids, boomers. So this is age group. This is fatality rate. So basically, pretty low mortality rate actually for the youngsters. You get old, not so good. Here's the other thing, cases requiring hospitalization and critical care. So obviously all these numbers go up as you age. So that's of concern. So why are we trying to implement, or why are governments trying to implement mitigation intervention type strategies, either staying at home, full quarantine, closures of schools, and so forth? Well, it goes back to, in part, this, that you want to be able to treat as many patients as you can. And this is just based off of beds per 1,000 population. But here, if you do nothing, you can see that you get this huge spike, kind of correlated with the deaths and the other thing. If you do sort of, and by the way, this red line down here is the available beds at surge times. So you can see that you're way, way over this amount. So if you do kind of a pretty aggressive quarantine and social distancing, school closures, all that sort of thing, that you reduce this peak. Still at this peak, which is kind of interesting, they said you're still 8 times higher than your peak ICU and critical care beds. So basically you can reduce the deaths by about half, but again, it's up here. It's not if, it's type of a win situation. What was also quite interesting is, if you do these mitigations for a period of time, so that's in this blue, you can see that you can suppress this pretty well. Most of these numbers are down here versus your do nothing strategy. You leave this situation, you go back to normal. Because people haven't been exposed, then basically you see a resurgence of this. So they're actually going to kind of another scenario where, and again, let me find it. where you go to on-off cycles based off of seeing people kind of getting infected, creeping back up. And this is where you have like a mitigation period. You come off of it here. You see things go back up. You turn back on the mitigation and it goes back down and so forth. So you can see that, again, over the course of time, people are getting infected, but at least you're not overwhelming the system, hopefully, and allowing more people to not do this. But as you can see here, again, going back to this fact, 12 to 18 months to have a vaccine, basically you're extending out this period of these mitigations quite far, which who knows the economic consequences of that. So in essence, that's what I learned from this little article. Fun stuff.